Step inside the Al Nasser hospital and see the carnage and chaos being wrought in Gaza. This, the aftermath of an Israeli strike on a school in Khan Younis, where dozens had been sheltering. There are no words left for final goodbyes. On the blood-stained floor, 2 injured children lie silent and still. Another boy sobs uncontrollably. The Israelis launched mortars at us, he says. We were scared and couldn't sleep. All night we were praying. Nowhere is free from fear, but as the assault on Khan Younis intensifies, many are fleeing the city. Israel had ordered hundreds of thousands of Gazans to leave their homes in the north and come here. But they believe Hamas's leadership is in Khan Younis too. Now, many neighborhoods are being told to evacuate as soldiers move in. Abu Omar and his family have lived here in a tent for the past 50 days. Now they're on the move again.
There is no safe place. Even the authorities have said there's no safe place in the Gaza Strip. But at the end of the day, we just have to head to wherever we think there might be a bit of safety.
The Israeli army has said today saw the fiercest fighting of the war so far. They blame Hamas for hiding amongst the population. Military operations are accelerating as international pressure over civilian casualties rises.
What is the Israeli army looking to have tangibly achieved in order for this war to be called off, to be over?
Realistically, a disbanding of the fighting units, cutting off communications and not being able to actually give orders by Hamas. And let's put aside how we would know this, okay? But at the end of the day, not being able to be a fighting unit anymore, that would be a sign of collapse and destruction or neutralization of their warring capabilities.
Do you think that's achievable, and what kind of time frame is needed?
If we were not to care for civilian casualties, it could be done in 2 weeks, but the price would be so high that we wouldn't want to, for the civilians to pay that price. So therefore, in order to do this with a minimal collateral damage, it'll probably take a few more months.
Another airstrike in my street, for my neighbors, for my neighbor house.
What will months of more violence mean for the people of Gaza? Will the world allow these apocalyptic scenes to continue that long? This was an airstrike in the center of Gaza. 80% of the population has been forced from their homes. Nearly 2/3 of all houses in Gaza have been destroyed or damaged. Many are now gathering in Rafah, at the border with Egypt, in the most dire of conditions. There are no bathrooms here, says Enas. We can't wash our children's hands. There are no bakeries, no supermarkets. We spend all night hearing the bombings. We can die at any moment. The UN says it can't look after the hundreds of thousands of people heading to Rafah. But no one in Gaza knows when they'll be able to return home, or what will be left to return to.
Well, today here in Tel Aviv, we heard warning sirens ring out after a number of rockets were launched at the city from the Gaza Strip. Now, these rockets are generally intercepted. They often don't do any real damage, but they are a reminder that Hamas's military capabilities, or at least some of those military capabilities, still remain intact. The Israeli army says that it's fighting today around Khan Younis in the south, also in a number of locations in the north of the Gaza Strip. The Israeli military chief was also asked about media reports about possible plans to flood the Hamas tunnel network with seawater. He said that it was a good idea, in his words, but wouldn't be drawn on specifics. Of course, one of the biggest challenges around something like that would be the fate of the more than 100 Israelis who are still kept hostage in Gaza. Relatives of some of them met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, though by all accounts it was a stormy meeting, with relatives accusing the government of not doing enough to secure the release of their loved ones. Some of the freed hostages also apparently describing their mistreatment at the hands of Hamas. The government insists that increasing the military pressure on Hamas is the best way to secure their release. Not everyone is convinced by that.
Sekundar Kamani there, thanks very much. Well, earlier I spoke to Tariq Yasarevich from the World Health Organization. It says people in Gaza who need medical treatment aren't getting it. And I asked him what this means in practice.
The situation is catastrophic. We had a team in Al Nasser Hospital, one of the hospitals in Gaza. They were saying that the capacity is like 300 beds, and there were more than 1,000 patients there on the floor, screaming, not being able to get medical care they need. And things will get only worse. The only solution is ceasefire and unhindered access. So we, as WHO, together with other humanitarian actors, can bring humanitarian aid, including medical supplies.
I mean, the Israeli government repeatedly say that it is giving people warning to move from areas before there is air attacks, ground attacks. Does that notice have any value?
There is no safe place in Gaza right now. People are just being pushed. We are talking about 2 million people who have been pushed around and pushed into corners. And what we are seeing now is that more and more people getting into parts of south of Gaza. And that's not safe place. That's not the definition of a safe place.
You have been consistently saying, particularly in the last few days, you've recorded an unprecedented number of attacks on healthcare in Gaza, on hospitals. WHO keeps saying this must stop, but no one is listening to you, are they?
We have been consistently calling on the release of Israeli hostages who are being held in Gaza as well. And the truce that was going on for a week or so helped to bring in some medical supplies and brought some relief. Unfortunately, what is happening now is just more misery, more suffering, more deaths.
You were told yesterday directly to move supplies from a warehouse in southern Gaza by the Israeli Defense Force before that warehouse would be put out of use by a ground assault. How do you do that practically? Was it even possible?
We were told that we better move out our supplies because there would be military engagement in the area and we would not be able to access supplies that we had in that warehouse. So that's what we did, because we need those supplies, because those supplies are needed in hospitals that are still functioning. And we spent a day of trying to find a place where those supplies could go. There was a delivery being scheduled to two hospitals that has been cancelled. We did find something, but again, it's a lot of effort for something that really should not be happening.
How do you see the next few days and weeks going if another ceasefire isn't brought about?
There are thousands of people with chronic diseases who will not be able to get services that they need. And on top of all of that, people who are crammed in a very small spaces risk to see emergence of infectious diseases, respiratory viruses that are especially dangerous for children, waterborne diseases because of a lack of clean water, skin diseases. In shelters, there is a one toilet for 200 people. There's one shower for 4,000 people. So with a lack of sanitation and clean water, and with temperature dropping and people being close by, there is a risk of emergence of infectious diseases on top of the injuries, on top of people who are sick and who cannot get the treatment they need.
Tariq Yasarevich, thank you very much for talking to us today.